And I should be able to see this running. Usually it never gives me any warning, just straight into it. That's why I usually just say, well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Sunday Live Chat. We're here without introduction to me that the stream is running, but I'd like to formally introduce ORPHX, Rich, and Christy. Welcome, guys.
Thanks. We're pretty excited to be here and chatting with you.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's weird how when you look into it, you actually do cross paths somewhere back in time, even though you might not even realize that. So it's good to see you again. Apparently, did we play a gig together in 1995 with Dead
Yeah,
Voices on Air at the Rivoli on Queen Street?
I want to say 96, but somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, maybe it was 96
Just
because
you and Mark as download, I think, and then also Dead Voices. Does that make sense?
yeah, well, I don't have a good memory of the time because I think Dwayne had just passed recently, and Mark said to me, Kevin, let's go on the road and do some things so that we don't think about this. And so it was kind of a bit of a therapeutic adventure for us too. But it was very fun to just improvise. And I think we also played in your hometown, if I'm not mistaken, of Hamilton, Ontario. Did we not?
yeah,
Yeah, we came to that show, and then
yeah.
we opened at the Rivoli in Toronto.
Wow, it's like it is coming back to me something about Hamilton, and that is like your home base. Is that where you guys met?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We met in high school.
A high school meeting. Wow, that's amazing. And did you somehow know right away that you guys would make music, or did you just were you just friends at first, or what happened?
I think yeah, part of the connection was music, and I'm not sure how many months after we met we started a band, but it wasn't that many. Um, and that was more of like a shoegaze kind of project. Um,
So right away into music. You guys didn't just start talking about art or anything else, but previously.
Well, we were dating, and I think the connection for us dating was, music
yeah, and art.
and art.
Christy's a
Yeah,
visual artist, and
yeah, film
he was
and
already deep
yeah.
into that at that point.
What did you have synthesizers laying around there that became the source of discussion?
Indeed, we do. Yeah,
Yeah.
You definitely do now. But
yeah,
what about in the day? I mean,
right here.
something always brings on somebody having access to the gear and bringing it
Yeah,
into.
yeah, yeah. I had a keyboard, and Rich had just acquired one, I think, at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah. No, I had just
Yeah.
got the ESQ1. It's the first synth I ever got, and that was I think I saved up one summer, and Christy, as she said, had one. So we
Yeah,
were like,
I
okay,
had
we
saved
can
up for
do something with this.
an SY55.
Oh wow, interesting. What was the reason on that choice?
It was it was between that and the M1. It was just like early days, me like going on, reading Keyboard magazine. What's the best, keyboard to get, and like comparing those two, and I think I like the sound
Yeah.
better. That's why
A-
55 for some reason. I went and tried them out, and yeah, yeah.
I
So
would I would say that there's a lot of people out there that would say this is a good choice. It's not the easiest synth to start with, though. That's for sure.
yeah, but it was like, and I'm pretty nerdy. It was fun, and I just the menu diving was not fun. So, but other than that, yeah,
Yeah, there's
it
a lot
was
of menu diving, but the results, I mean,
yeah.
Dwayne had the SY77, and it used to blow my mind. But when I got into looking at what he was programming, I was thinking, like, wait, it was like DX7 plus. It seemed to be a little bit more accessible than a DX7 programming wise, but it definitely had the sound that
Crazy about that stuff as well.
Yeah, I wish I had the DX.
I think like because
Yeah,
ORPHX started with my friend Aaron and I think using that then that I borrowed off you because I was like, this thing's amazing. I was just still getting my head around the SQ1, and then the SY55 really caught my attention. I'm not sure what it was about it, but
When did we get the Mirage?
like 94, like a year later.
Okay, yeah. And
So
now that we
93,
got-
94, yeah, that's the time when you didn't have like, you know, an overwhelming amount of choices. Like I also chose the ESQ1 too, just because it seemed to be a little bit more programmable, well, accessibly programmable than what Dwayne wanted to do, which we did both, so I'm glad. But so a lot of my, it's funny, we jointly used also the Mirage and the ESQ religiously on so many recordings. And I don't know, was it maybe something in Canada we had access to these things? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we got the Mirage because you guys had a Mirage.
Oh, no way.
I was gonna say that I feel like we just kind of discovered that after. I remember the
did
ESQ.
we?
Well, with the
talking
SQ1,
about
I remember like some years later realizing that Puppy was using this synth, and I thought, well, that's funny that I gravitated towards that one as well.
Yeah, but I thought
Definitely.
at the time, I thought that we had talked about the Mirage.
Oh,
and
probably.
You know, this is
I mean,
like
it has that
this is
that distinctive sound.
We
that
gotta
you
get
can-
this. We gotta get this.
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, and then there's the DX. Yeah, that was.
The DX, it's not the first thing that I would consider. Do you still use the DX?
Here and there, yeah. That was one of those things where like a friend was selling it, and I was like, oh, we don't have a drum machine.
Oh yeah.
Scoop this up, see what it does.
But so this is the OG sound was what was like the DX, the ESQ, the Mirage, and the MS-20
That came a few years later. Yeah.
a few years later. Yeah, I always found these quite difficult to find, and comparatively to some of the other gear at this time. I don't know, maybe people didn't sell it or whatever. But so this was I guess this would be the genesis of the beginning of the band, which you had said in another statement or something that it started off with a different name and was based on ORPHX, or the worshippers of Orpheus, which is some Greek thing. It's important to probably point out that you were a professor with doing philosophy, and so tie us into a little bit of the origins of ORPHX and the worshippers of Orpheus.
Yeah, my friend Aaron and I, so it was originally a trio. We were both starting to get into philosophy and just sort of fascinated by religious cults and things of that nature, and came across the mystery cults of ancient Greece, which have sort of like secret initiations and this sort of thing. And we just found this really fascinating. And the Orpheus in particular, because it has this myth of this hero going into the underworld and then returning again, and that concept kind of like
Interesting.
interesting.
What is it something that, like, as if you were developing one thing, like being a professor or going into that direction, did music veer you off, or are you doing some things dually?
I was doing both for quite a while, and then eventually had to choose. So about the last 10 years, it's just been music. But I had like a separate trip through academia, and it's still an interest for sure. Yeah.
That's amazing. That I should be saying to you guys, congratulations on 30-year anniversary. Isn't it funny how fast things go?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And before you know, like, it's like what you guys have made 16 albums, and you basically toured everywhere. Basically a dream list of where, you know, someone would hope to go. Even I want to ask you a couple questions about some of your shows, but it's I guess a testament to say that Rihanna asked me earlier and said, "Is this trance?" And I said, "I don't know if you call it trance. Is there a technical name for the style of music that has become accustomed? Like if you show up on one of your nights at Tresser or wherever, what do people know? Is there a term?"
Well, in the last 10 years or so within techno, they started using this term industrial techno to kind of describe like a turn towards like harder sounds and darker atmospheres. And that term's okay for us. And I think over the 30 years, we kind of moved back and forth between techno and the more pure industrial sound, like in the early days. And sometimes we kind of veer back into that, especially the last few years.
Yeah, the term power electronics is sometimes floated around, and
For the old stuff.
for the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, as we showed with the gear here, we've gone through several generations of equipment, and like the evolution of equipment, and the things that you might have found getting into your hands. For instance, you guys at first, when I Dream of Wires came out, 10 years ago, we're talking about really was almost like more so the beginning of the Eurorack scene, almost as seen by your rack, Christy, where you can see like I swear we all have the same beginning modules here.
Yeah.
These the Borg filter and the BBD modules.
Yeah.
But so it was great to see that like you guys were kind of like there right at the beginning, and you even daring enough to take Eurorack live and to start sort of like making this new stamp, I'll call it, because up till that point, I don't think people were really that trusting about wanting to tour with gear that had this many wires and was this delicate to travel with. And what made you guys think that, okay, this is it? It's going to be the modular, and it's going to be, I guess, everything that you had envisioned up to this point. What brought on the idea that that it had to be also inclusive of a deep, dark modular?
I guess that was me.
2008.
2008.
Track rack.
Yeah. We went, like you were saying, we went through a few iterations of gear, and when we very first started out, we had the few synths we discussed, but also like reel to reel. I was into like tape loops and things you can get your hands on, and the physical keyboards, like the Mirage. The sampling was it's a lot of like hands-on stuff, and then we gradually moved into computers. And that sort of took over like early 2000s, and then it just got a little bit less exciting, I think, for me. And then a friend had this like modular system, and I was like, oh, this is so exciting. You can actually physically do everything, move it, change it. There's like all these chance things that can happen. It can go really wrong, but also sound really amazing, and just so many possibilities. And I thought, oh, I really want this live. Like this is like a thing. Like this is like kind of getting back into like actually physically being involved and not just sitting behind your laptop and kind of moving a little controller or whatever. And we'd had to, and with bringing that out too, there's like we have to be improvising some things to a certain extent, because if something goes a little weird or wrong, like you got to work with it, and then just it keeps developing, and that part's pretty exciting.
That would be the challenging thing that I would think, because I would think that you'd have to set it up in your mind, and maybe I should be asking you, how many ideas do you have set up in its basic form that you can go to with a modular, where you can return to sort of like the beginning and start, your next song, and then go back to your next song? You know what I mean? With a modular, it'd be like, you think like, okay, I'm hoping that you would say you would use a certain basis of things for, say, certain types of sounds, and come back. And are you using an external sequencer to basically drive what is being sequenced?
Yeah, there's different kind of iterations of that, I think, too. Like it had a dark time for a little while. Again, that's pretty it changes all the time too. There's no settings there that could be saved or anything.
Yeah, it's brave. I myself, I always find it brave when I see people that are utilizing modulars live, and it works for them. So you've also got the background of being a painter and a teacher. How did you just fall into like understanding? Like a large part of people, they can't approach a modular and think about it in musical terms or in the sense of a term of being a tool that is, other than, yeah, just a giant bleeping noise maker.
Yeah, I don't know.
You probably, it seemed like you really liked the challenge of learning how to use it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a little bit nerdy that way, I guess. I was just like, ooh, this is exciting. I have to like understand how to work all these things and how they work together. And then, there's something about like in the live performance, yeah, we do have this kind of idea of like, because we have some tracks that like maybe we want to like Rich might have vocals or something in our more recent work, and we want to have a certain kind of sound and certain pitches, and so yeah, I have to like recreate that. So I have kind of have to know how everything works to be able to like dial that in really fast. But then there's other areas where we'll have an idea like, oh, these kinds of sounds, and then have it set up so that I can create quite a variety of different sounds. I have like that 4MS matrix. So it's really great at being able to just allow for a huge range of sound types. So it can really I think that makes it a little bit easier to change things on the fly and have like a lot of possibilities for a set.
and like I think like the ability to improvise and the idea of like we're not really sure what's going to happen, that kind of danger element, that was part of the attraction because we came from improvising everything. That's still
Yeah.
kind of the way we work, is to improvise and then edit the results. And like Christy was saying, we went into using the software, laptop controller. It was great for touring, but at that time we were using things like Cubase and basically like running a backing track and then playing over top, and quite rigid, not a lot of room to improvise. And then we started working with Ableton Live, so we could improvise more and change parameters on the fly. And then adding the modular in, it felt like, okay, we're going back to the beginning of just, press record and go. And different shows over since that time, like have we play around with it. Like sometimes it's more improvised, and sometimes there's a bit more structure. But I think that was like part of the attraction and why it became so central to the way we work, is that it felt like, oh, we're going back to that approach that feels like the fun way to do it. Yeah.
And I can imagine over 30 years or this amount of time that you've had time to figure out, well, this works and this doesn't work, and this sequencer, I like this. But I was really interested when I saw this picture that you guys had for a setup here at the Labyrinth Festival in Japan, which, by the way, I'm kind of semi-jealous on that. It's an outdoor festival in Niigata, which is a classic, classic experience. But what do we got going here? This is what I find. Are you asking for this console to be there when you show up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
And
we,
then
we've got some Akai boxes here.
Yeah, those like, so I use expert sleepers to send to do this. I have a Motu and use CD. That's my CD converter. So there'll be some like clock coming from that. And then the modular goes like back into the Motu and then into Ableton, so then it can be like reprocessed on the fly as well too. So different channels might add different like processed effects. And then Rich is
yeah, so on my side, it's more like pieces of studio material that are all, like short segments or some longer loops. And I'm basically like creating tracks or improvising with those pieces during the show. So I'm a bit more of the structure side of things, I guess you could say, the percussive side of things, and Christie's side is more like bass lines and textures.
Is this information that's both sound and triggering stuff? I want to get an understanding of what this thing is.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what, so that's the controller. And for me, mostly I use it like a mixer. So
Oh,
you'll
okay.
see along the bottom and you'll see there's that tape over it. So I don't like accidentally like
Could
trigger
have just
stuff.
reassigned those, but we're like, let's put
Yeah,
some tape.
Yeah.
I don't think that the clips that are in there are actually anything that's played. It would have been like something that I was just recording while I was noodling around. But on the bottom, mostly like the sliders are just for like bringing in different sounds so that I can like pull things in or bring them up depending on which sounds. Like maybe there's something that's going a little weird and I can like pull it out. Um, but yeah, and then I can add different effects from the knobs on that APC 40. So it kind of just ties into Ableton so that I can use it as a, and then you can see the dark time there. That's like the sequencer.
Okay.
I would have
There
been
you go.
using.
That's
Yeah.
Does that have like programs that you can save with different sequences, or is it just a one go?
No, like so I would from the computer there'll be like one channel in there on a couple of channels that would be sending different clock times to my dark time. So depending on what kind of like time structure I wanted, I'll like send the clock and then it would adjust, you know, the timing of what I'm doing on the dark time, but uh it wasn't actually sending you know, no
No,
notation,
no,
anything
no.
like that.
This
Yeah,
is
you can't
setting
really control that. I have a beat step now, which I use, and that, you know, I can have like
in this
stuff
capacity.
saved. I can have stuff saved in it, so it's a lot more versatile that way. If you want to like bring
See,
up exact note.
always changing. That's the way.
Yeah.
So I bet, yeah, your modular by this time has probably changed a lot since that last
Yeah.
video that we just saw.
Oh yeah,
What
for sure.
what are the essential things that you found that you really must have as far as the modular is concerned? Are you working with sample-based modules, or do you like more regular synthesis oscillators,
Yeah, I like
filters?
more
Yeah.
regular synthesis stuff. I know there's a lot of really cool sampler-based modules, but I'm just not really into that as much for you know, particularly for live stuff because Rich and I work together, you know, he does a
Yeah,
bit
that's kind of
more
more of what I'm
of
doing.
that. Yeah, whereas what I'm doing is I'm like synthesis stuff. So like I mentioned that 4MS matrix, like that's like pretty critical for my live setup, maybe not necessarily for like recording at home, but for the live setup, like that's really like you know, a critical module. Yeah, and the other stuff is all more like a synthesis based, yeah, and some like processing like reverb and you know yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, everybody has such unique setups. I always just love hearing about, everybody's stuff. So forgive me for being a bit geeky here, but
Oh no, no, that's great.
yeah. And over the time, I'm also blown away with how active you guys are. Like whoever your agent is or whoever does your booking, you're just fantastic job for you guys by the looks of it. It seems that there's always like a festival or something that you're involved with that seemingly is not just like a regular everyday thing. Like you guys have become regular appearances at some of the biggest clubs, darkest, deepest, scariest clubs in Europe. And that must be quite a joy to know that you're not just going to make noise, but you're going to go and you're really going to give it a spot for it to live. And this that you were this month or just come out is the live at I don't even know how to say that Roclaw.
The Rothswav, but that could be wrong too.
Yeah. The Canadian way would be Roclaw. I always say that Canadians are allowed to pronounce things any way they want
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we do.
Sounds about right. Yeah, we recognize it, you know, we talk about it a lot. You know, we feel really lucky about you know, our where we've the that we're still playing, that we've been able to play at so many different places, and for so many different types of music festivals, because we've kind of crossed over a few genres and
Yeah.
all sorts of different types of audiences, and
And a
yeah, really.
huge variety of releases. I mean, good luck going through it all in one or two nights. Nope. No, you guys. Uh, Christy, are you always like taking on the cover graphics and the imagery?
No, and on that, I've done a few things, but yeah, a few of them I've done. But Rich is really awesome, especially on our like Bandcamp and Instagrams, and he does a lot of the
There's my collage.
that yeah
It
that's
was like two things stuck together.
yeah yeah he does a lot of the graphic stuff too, and then of course like for some number of releases we've had different
Yeah, there's some really good
artists,
graphic designer.
graphic designers do the work. So it's been really fun to work with different people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, we've been really fortunate, just the contacts we've made, and like Christy was saying, we've been able to kind of inhabit the industrial world and different scenes associated with that, and then um, it took quite a while to connect to the techno world, even though we were interested in listening and making stuff that was fitting into that mold. It took a while to kind of get into those networks, and
You guys are definitely in there. When I was looking at this list, you guys were just at what? Wave Gothic Treffen with Splendor Geometrico. I love those guys.
love them too.
Yeah, that was another like we've done so many shows where we've been like, oh, I can't believe we're getting to play with
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and as I go down this list, like so many incredible venues as well. Like even just being able to go and do like not only go to Athens but have a great gig, or for instance, even in this day and age, playing into okay, I'm going to say it wrong, Tbilisi.
That's
At,
about right.
oh, that's good, good.
And I love
Just
his kitty.
just back in April, what was that vibe like?
Oh, it's really cool. I mean, we've played there a few times, that club in that city, and because the techno scene is quite new there, there's a lot of energy. Um, so that's really cool, and you can really feel it. So
It's like these clubs that begin to become known as kind of like synonymous almost with the style of music. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Berghain. These places don't. You even have to look right to get into these places.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean that place is
we're
notorious for that.
it's got a reputation for having a hard door policy. But
What is are they just trying to keep out people with like that
I don't
obviously
even
wouldn't be into it?
I don't know. Maybe yeah. I think that was the original premise to only have those who are actually into the music. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's the case now. I think it's just become sort of a thing that's part of the identity. But and certainly lots of other clubs, have followed suit with this sort of like yes, no, maybe door policy.
It kind of seems
yeah,
like you guys are regulars now at these clubs that I've only seen pictures of. I've never been there before, but it must be truly amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's there's certainly some amazing venues, and I mean there's a great one, the Kraftwerk next to Trésor. No, it's been great to be able to play those places. I mean, Trésor in particular has been a place that we've played I think since 2009 quite regularly, and I mean that's just sort of a legendary pub in my mind. So
and I remember the first time that we played at Berghain, we were like, oh, I can't believe we're here. Like, this
Numbers
is
and numbers of times you guys have been at most of these places. It must just be which ones stand out to you and for what reason?
well,
Oh,
Trésor,
this one?
yeah.
yeah, we only played that once, but that was a trip.
Yeah, we played another festival in Japan called Rural, and that was actually really quite amazing too. Just beautiful scenery. It was out in the mountains, and yeah, there's only so many places you get to play like that. Like,
But when it comes to these mega clubs, these clubs that we've all heard of and wonder if we'd ever be able to be let in, What's the most special part about them? Is there something that's like, okay, this is exciting. I'm going to Berghain again.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, all the ones we've mentioned, I think are probably our favorite ones: Berghain, Trésor, Kitty, that stand out just because they're unique environments, and I'm not
Amazing sound system.
yeah, and I think particularly, pre-pandemic, very focused, curated sound. That that was another case of like good luck, I think, on our part that this kind of sound, industrial techno or whatever you want to call it, became quite prominent at the same time that we had connected to the kind of techno world. And so what we were doing just kind of fit in as that started to take off, and that was just very, very good timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we were able to connect with that.
Lucky. And it's pretty amazing to get to play for such like a great a great crowd that's just really there and into the music and going crazy. And I remember the one gig that I remember the most at Berghain that I thought was like really special was we were actually out on the floor, which we had only been once, I think, in that position, where they put us on a table like right out in the floor so that people were all around us and basically like passing us notes while we were playing, and like hanging over the gear and stuff, and that sort of thing. Like that's what I really like, when we're right there and people are just in front of you, and it's just everything's happening like at an intense level like that. That's really great.
And I would say like equally special are the gigs that we've been able to continue to play in the kind of industrial scene.
Is that Mutador?
That was in Amsterdam, I think.
Okay.
Amsterdam, New Year's Eve, 2017.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these industrial gigs, like the smaller scale, but still really good sound systems and
From the
great
beginning.
dedicated crowd, yeah, from the beginning, and still able to, like, especially after the pandemic, the kind of techno connections dwindled a little bit for us. There's kind of a change in the
Scene.
the scene and the dominant sound, and while we're still able to play those kind of venues, it's not quite the same. But the industrial scene has been there for us, and we've been able to keep playing some of those events and festivals, and like the Wave Gothic gig, and
that was actually really amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible.
last
Yeah,
gig.
how does that work for you guys? Like it must. I think it would be great, obviously, but I mean, most of them just seem to want to hear some of the most scariest music, and I mean that in a way that you and I would probably not want to listen to. And I mean that with respect, but like completely outside of the realm of like the scope of music that you guys are making is considerably almost more darker.
So sorry, what we asking about the?
Oh, it's just like how you fit into Wave Gothic Treffen. How do you feel it works with that crowd where it seems to be more specific, like guys that would be into the Mission UK or Peter
Right.
Murphy or so on.
I don't know. I guess we've always, like, we sort of came from those kind of roots for sure. So I feel like we somehow it kind of feels okay. And that particular gig with the Splendor, I mean, the whole night was well curated in terms of like who they put together.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it usually is.
the people are very you would be surprised. They're actually it's quite an open-minded crowd, I think. And so there'll be some people that will go to those festivals that will be only into the sound that you mentioned. But there's so many different nights and venues happening that
Yeah.
like our event was curated, and it's our specific little corner of goth, I guess, which has a crossover with experimental music and with industrial and across with techno, and so the people on our night were all into in that kind of corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's those events where you really get the hardcore fans. I think it's more the industrial events where it's like people who have followed the project for years, and
Oh, so they made it right so that it would work for that event.
felt like it, yeah.
That's what I like about those guys, is that they definitely will do that. Christy, what is this here?
Oh, that's that's probably that's
So it's the more recent APC.
yeah, some more recent APC 40. Yeah, it's like yeah, again, just like my mixer.
Is
So
that, see, I'm not an Ableton guy. Is this like a normal thing for Ableton people to see? Is this like a clip external piece of hardware player?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
yeah, but
okay. I get
yeah,
it.
but like I said, I don't. Rich uses it and it like uses the clips, but I use it more as like a mixer with like a bunch of different inputs coming into it. And I think like Ableton's been great for us. It's just so versatile that way.
Yeah.
And
So you use Ableton differently than Rich does?
yeah, for live anyway.
Yeah,
For recording, probably more similar.
yeah.
But
Do you guys always like to work in Ableton, or do you ever switch out to any other DAW?
That's like central to everything, really, is Ableton, and then like yeah, some other programs for editing and various other tasks.
used
But
to
it's
be
it's like that's the core thing.
used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, yeah. We used Fruity Loops in the past and
Oh,
Cubase.
wow.
The old
You know what's
ones.
weird is that I tried to use that program once thinking, oh, this is just going to be a breeze. I'll just pick it up. And I had to put it down because it was like I couldn't really figure it out, the methodology of how they wanted me to work, being used to Logic and stuff like that.
Oh, Fruity Loops.
I had to give up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird. Yeah.
I hate that. Usually I like to, to take something on without having to read a manual or do something. It should be intuitive enough. But yeah, look at this great crowd in Russia. Too bad we can't go play
Yeah.
Russia anymore.
That was
Yeah, they're great audiences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we feel lucky that we got to go there.
Uh-oh, what we got here? Looks like
Yeah.
the rig in Tokyo or in 2015 or so, the older one. Or do you still do you like it like this way, flat versus up standing?
Um, well, sometimes what I'll do, and I didn't do it there, but more recently I've been like, I'll stuff some of the packing from the other stuff underneath the back rack so that
Yeah,
it's angled up a
angled
little
up.
bit. But I've over the years, people like to see what you're doing. And if you have it up, no one can see what you're up to. And people enjoy, the audience enjoys getting to see me patch because I like to patch live. So I'll change things and move things around live, and people enjoy getting to see that you're engaged and that you're doing something and they can watch. And so I can put it up a little bit and people can still see, but then it's a little bit more user friendly.
Is there a module that has remained in this rack since the very beginning one?
I had that I had a frac rack that I took, and now I have Euro, but the Borg, you mentioned the Borg filter, so I had that in my frac, and I
Okay.
got the Euro rack version because I just love the sound of that so much. So that is one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah.
They did well on that, and there's the wondrous setup. I noticed that it seemed like it might have been wet out that day. Do you guys get ever
Oh,
fearful of rain?
wet?
It was crazy. Yeah, you were like up to your ankles in mud at that.
I saw on the ground, it seemed like actually that it might have been dangerous if you were handling electronics.
Well, the stage is elevated, so we were
Yeah.
We were
mud,
okay,
but
yeah, but yeah, it was pouring. I don't know about when we were playing. I think we kind of lucked out during our show, but it had been pouring all weekend.
yeah,
And
you
you
can
guys have,
get the gear into some of the environments.
Yes, I don't even want to say anything, but like we've been really lucky so far.
oh, good, 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 yeah.
Although we had one show at Tresor where and this was with the frac, right? I used to bring the frac rack out, and I had my friend Ruby was like having the cable wasn't connecting at the back and the power kept going off of it, so I had her like with her hand through like from the crowd holding like the power supply in while we were playing. It's like,
Oh
Ruby,
no.
hold it. Don't move.
It'll be fun.
It'll be fun for a whole hour and a half that you had to. Yeah, that was great. She did that.
It's great that you guys have also been able to play in so many unusual countries, even including China. Um, what stands out to you now when you look back? Is I always thought that it's like whenever you play a country that is even one you would never have expected to play, that it makes it that much more special. Does it continue to be that way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that seems like it was just, a few months ago, but that was 2019 that we did that little tour in China, and I think that was the most exciting one so far because it was just even more so than Japan. I felt like, wow, I'm really in a different place now, and I'm not sure
Oh
exactly.
yeah, it just must have been amazing. I mean, I don't know what. How do you organize something like that?
Again,
Oh,
that was just like a fortunate thing that there was a promoter in China who I think had brought a few artists through and done these small tours, and he contacted our agent and said, "Hey, would they be interested in doing this?" And he came around with us to the dates, and
he's basically like a babysitter.
yeah, we would have been screwed without him.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So he really made that whole thing possible.
It sounds like I should look into who your agent is because, like, I would look at all these gigs. You just got so many amazing shows with FM Einheit. You've got shows with you do even doing cold waves with Front 242 and those guys. How did you find playing what I would call like an American gig compared to say playing a Dark Night at Berghain?
I mean, we love playing over here in the States. Like it's always like easy just to kind of pop down and do a weekend of shows. So, but I mean that festival in particular was really fun, and the connection with 242 was another weird thing that just sort of
Mhm.
randomly came out through a class that Christy was teaching here in Hamilton, and one of the students came up after the class and was like, "Oh, my dad really likes your music." I was like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Oh, he's in this band Front 242.
And
You,
then I
you
was
should
like,
send him an email. He's a big fan." I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it was kind of
Wow.
bizarre.
That was Patrick Codenis, and so we struck up like a correspondence with him,
And
and
he's lovely.
yeah, great guy.
Yeah. So
And so that led to the Cold Waves gig and playing with him in Toronto.
Wow. I think it's great. Do you guys change your setup much when you tackle a U.S. show versus a European show or a Chinese show for that matter?
Well, the
oh
China one was a real
yeah,
challenge because we
yeah.
were, not having been there before, we were quite nervous about what that would entail, like going through customs. And I can't remember the details, but it was like you're not declaring all the information, let's say. And so we brought a very like smaller setup. Um, did you have
And
any modular gear? Maybe just like a beauty case, and then like
yeah,
I think we had this
I had
101.
a much smaller like doper
Right.
rack,
Yeah.
and then a mini
That
SH
101 is fine. Yeah.
101. And yeah, we really did change it up for that. And then sometimes like Canadian and gigs that we can drive to, we can take more stuff and do kind of different things with that. Um,
Yeah, I guess the impulse, if we can drive, is to take more stuff, for
Yeah,
better or worse.
that's the way. But I mean, when you set up a gig in China like that, I guess you have zero expectation about what you'll even arrive to. I
Yeah, we were
mean,
pretty nervous about it, to be honest. It was amazing and it turned out just fine. It was great, but we were,
how
we
was
were
the
quite,
sound system?
Well, they were great. I think with all of the gigs, they had really good systems. And again, like with Georgia, techno is like a fairly recent thing,
Yeah,
so it's a younger and very enthusiastic crowd, and fairly small crowds, relatively
yeah.
speaking. But the energy's there, so
But it almost doesn't matter, does it?
no.
It's like I think, believe it or not, I played at the Demune Club in Tokyo two
oh
months, just 2 months before you guys played, and I saw your thing, and I thought like, wow, we're just 2 months apart. But when I look back on that, you guys played with Helena Hoff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was at the Rural Festival and the Damian gig.
Oh, and in for Unsound in Toronto,
Right.
I got to do. She was DJing. I got to. That was a DJ thing, I guess. I got to DJ with her. That was really cool.
She's one of my favorite DJs going. She just has always got a good ear for tracks that everyone missed, but somehow she has a way of presenting them that, I mean, I cannot tell you how many sets I've listened to of hers that I'm just really, really impressed with. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Demune is such a small club in Tokyo. I was wondering, was she just spinning albums or does she actually make her own music that night?
Just spinning. I think it was vinyl, right?
Vinyl.
The vinyl
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
just vinyl.
Yeah. What's
It's,
it called?
I guess anything goes there. We
Yeah, yeah.
we did a live stream there, and then we did the Tokyo Festival of Modular right after. But the guys that organized it, they had it was like a Function One system in there or something, and it was like the thing I love about Japan is that they're way over PA a very small room, but it will
Yeah.
sound just so perfect, and no decibel limitations or anything like that.
No, yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
you ever run into decibel limitations in places like China or things like that where you thought like, wait, it just needs to be 5 dB louder?
No, I think it was sufficiently loud over there. Yeah. I mean, I guess occasionally, like everybody, there's some gig where you're dissatisfied with the volume, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that might happen more over here.
Is
More, yeah.
is there some places that you played like where you're hearing it in louder ways than you actually even expected to hear it?
Yeah, actually, I can remember a gig actually, it was in Toronto a few years ago where, I don't know, they had a sound guy who really just wanted to push it. And it sounded fabulous. And everyone seemed to be just loving this brutal volume that he got it to. I think that was a Function One as well. But yeah, great.
One time I played a club in Kyoto just on a solo set, and it was the first time I'd heard some mixes of some songs that I had done outside our studio. And it was in this club where the whole club was like, it's called Socrates in Kyoto. And it's like the entire club, it maybe holds 50 people, but like the entire place is speakers. And I played it and I couldn't believe how good it sounded. I was like, wait, I've never heard my own music even sound like this. You ever had that experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it gets magical.
Not to have a room like that where you can.
Well, especially when you're working on those German systems, man. I've heard like some of the German systems over there are just so well tuned. Like you can talk over it, but it's still loud in the right areas. It's quite amazing. But you guys along the way, not only with Helena and other things, but you formed a union with one of our pals here, Justin Broderick, J.K. Flesh, and how did that come about?
So that came about through playing the Berlin Atonal Festival, and it was 2016. They said that they're always keen on collaborations. They said, okay, we want to book you guys, but we want you to work with somebody else. So who do you want to work with? And so we made like a short list. I think who do we have on there? I think we had Mika Vainio, and we had Stephen O'Malley, and we had Justin. We're like, can you possibly get in touch with some of these people, any of these people we would love? And Justin was the one who got back with an enthusiastic yes. And he came to Berlin. We met him there just like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days before the gig. And we started working. We sent some music back and forth with him. But we were a little nervous to meet him. We're like, we've been fans since we were teenagers. And we're like, what's this guy going to be like, right? Like, is he going to be difficult to work with? Like, let's see what happens here. And of course, we immediately, this guy was just so easy to work with and so friendly. And
the sweetest person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I think he is just like the sweetest guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just complete. I've sat down and had such wonderful conversations when we were on tour with Godflesh, and yeah, just a sweetheart. So it didn't surprise me when I saw this, and I thought like, oh, this is very likely. I mean, he's really into all sorts of sides of music. And so, how did you feel this experience was?
It was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. We were so happy that it had been recorded. Like we didn't request that, but after the fact, we were like, yeah, we've got the set. So then the idea was in my mind, okay, maybe we could release this. And then we did another show, I think the following year, another festival in Amsterdam, and got that one recorded as well. So, and hopefully there'll be more shows to come. But we were really happy that we were able to create an album out of that. So that I think was 2019 that came out.
Yeah. And is it more than 16 albums now then?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't counted lately.
You
It's
have,
a lot.
you have to stop. And not
Yeah.
only that, but you guys are so active on remixing and working with other artists. You've even worked with one of our own here, Mark Spivey, on an album way back when.
I think it was that gig that we played with you guys in Toronto where we met Mark. I'm pretty sure, or maybe
Oh, wow.
the Hamilton gig.
No,
but-
Dimitri had connected us.
Well, we met through Mira.
Oh,
Mira and Mike
yeah, that's right.
knew Mark somehow,
Mm.
and yeah, I think through the Hamilton gig. So they were friends of ours that helped organize that show, and then introduced us to Mark, and we just got talking, and we're like huge fans of Soviet France. I know you are too.
Yeah.
From Patreon, and
Abs-
and so we were like, holy shit, like the possibility of working with this guy, because we just kind of hit it off, and we had a kind of side project at the time that was sort of in that vein, very much inspired by Soviet France. Yeah, so we started trading sounds with Mark, and we did that album just sort of sending 4-track tapes back and forth. I think like he was still in Vancouver at the time.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Mark. He said to say hi. He hasn't, obviously he's very prolific and works with just so many numbers of people. So if he reached out and did something with you, I always found that to be therapeutic when I first started working with Mark, because it was completely opposite to something that I thought I would regularly do. And he'd make me only play one thing. It's like, nope, you can't have your hands on 2 or 3 things. It's only one. And then see what you can get from that one sound. And I really like that. I really like that exercise in restraint.
Yeah, there's just too many choices these days, right?
Yeah, so how do you work around that now where it's like, yeah, in some way I could say your music could be known as heavy minimalist. Well, no, it's not so minimal though. I'm still looking I'm still looking for definitions here.
I mean, there's definitely certain records that are pretty minimalistic in terms of the number of sounds, and I feel like I'm always trying to aspire to that, and I think some of my favorite artists work that way. Yeah, Soviet Friends, Mika Venio, it's like just a few sounds and very good sounds and composition, the way things move. But there's always that impulse to add another layer, and sometimes that works. But I think, yeah, I'm always trying to like strip it down.
You go through different phases too of like more minimal or more like I would say recently it's probably been more maximal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it goes through different phases. I think what you're listening to, and then kind of you get into doing something for a while, and then you just want to change it up. And
The music. Have you ever seen that Gaspar Noé film, Irreversible?
Yeah. Yep.
It has this great sound about. It kind of sounds like you guys, but it sounds like it's in the next room. It's not like it's directly in your face in the thing, but it has this real tension building thing because you can't exactly hear it, and it's exactly like what you hear in the next room type thing. It's very effective. But for some reason, when I heard your stuff, it really kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
I remember like that film started, and immediately the sound, I was like, this sounds incredible. Like I know that churning.
yeah, made
sound,
a really frightening film even that much more frightening.
There's some very frightening scenes in that movie, so be prepared if anybody's going to go grab it. But Gaspar Noé, an incredible filmmaker. You guys are on some really cool labels out there. How do you decide or how do you make access to labels like Sonic Groove or Hands or any of the other labels that you like to work with? Is it a matter of just approaching them?
It's all been like kind of friendship based, really. Like, I mean, Hands we connected with like years ago in the late '90s. I think they got in touch based on the first CD that we did.
They got in
And
touch with Malignant.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we just started corresponding with them. And then went over there to play the first time we went to Europe. I think it was '98, and just connected on a personal level and became friends. And worked with them for years. And same with Sonic Groove. Like we met Adam, who runs the label, in 2008, and just hit it off and talked about music for hours. The first time we met.
He was at a show.
He was at our show, yeah.
Yeah, and then he got us into the techno scene, really.
Yeah, that was basically
he was instrumental.
The gateway into that world was through Adam.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And it was funny because he was kind of coming from the opposite direction, being active in the rave scene and making techno, but then discovering industrial music and EBM and drifting that way. And we were coming the opposite way, so we kind of we were.
Where do you see? Sorry, Chris, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that in your remix album, so it's Surgeon and
Right, yeah. I'd
and
reached out to a few artists that we really liked for remixes, and that helped connect as well.
When you're coming on,
it's like been a real kind of friendship, I think.
that's the way. I mean, I think that labels obviously are very important within the framework of how you build up your relationship within the industry. It's good you don't run across a sour label that basically, paints the whole experience in a negative way. But you guys started with your own label, and that's probably the thing to do with cassettes and everything like that, and built up to working within all these other labels. It's I don't know. Do you like to have the hands on everything, or do you like to give up the control to some of the other guys?
And I love doing the cassette label, like in the beginning, doing it, the graphics and folding them up by hand and all of that, like dubbing them by hand.
Yeah, that was
But
a lot of
I was a teenager with a lot of time on my hands, so now to do that, I get the tape duplicated, and I just don't have the time to do all that. So it is definitely a lot easier at this point to have someone who has a more established platform. But yeah, I started another small tape label just the last few years. It hasn't been quite as active as I intended, but I might pick up the pace in the next few years.
Yeah, excellent. So what's coming next?
Well, we have a lot of unfinished material for ORPHX and all the side projects. So there's a lot of editing to be done, and that's kind of what has our attention at the moment. I think we've got 2 like full-length albums for ORPHX.
Wow. So it's been a little while since you guys made an official release of an album.
Yeah, we did like a EP 12-inch.
Yeah.
But yeah, full-length album is a long time.
Yeah.
Like a full-length studio album, I should say.
Right. Yeah. What is it that is challenging about a studio album for you guys versus live? Is it because live is live and studio is studio?
Yeah, I think I think it's just been we've had a lot of live releases lately, and obviously that's a lot faster to kind of just do some editing and some EQing, and there you go.
It's making the space and the time, and life gets in the way, and trying to like carve out that time to get it done. It's been difficult, and the pandemic didn't help things.
Yeah, we lost a lot of momentum there. Like I think 2020 was looking like the best year yet, and we had this album going, and we're like inspired, and then it just kind of took the wind out of our sails. And then after that kind of delay, you're sort of like, oh, where do we go next direction wise? It just kind of lost momentum. So now it's sort of like going back to those pieces and like, okay, how do we put this together?
It seems by the amount of gigs you guys have done in the last couple of years, you're definitely picking up the pace, like quite I would be quite.
It's coming back. It's not quite what it was, but it's
Yeah,
coming back.
2019 was like great, and 2020 was looking to be like just really, yeah, a big year. And then I think, yeah, we just had the wind knocked out of our sails a little with the pandemic kind of halt on things. But yeah, definitely we've definitely been doing a lot of shows in the last couple of years. And then yeah, just need to like carve out that space for the studio work.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Have you what's the difference you think between the pandemic, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic as far as people and how they're acting as far as at these clubs that you're returning to in Europe?
I feel like I don't know if this is the case, but it seems like there's just less people going out. I mean, in the case of those clubs, they're packed, but I mean, in general, smaller gigs, I feel like yeah, just people are more reluctant to go out. I feel like I'm more reluctant to go out, and I love going out to gigs.
Yeah,
Uh, so that seems to be a kind of a hangover that's still there. Yeah.
it kind of happens that way from time to time, you know. Like God, I got to really push myself now where I would before go out, and I thought like, come on, go out, but quite often not going out. So maybe it's just the world over. People need to, start going out again, especially if you see J.K. Flesh and ORPHX show up at Berlin Tonal again.
Yeah.
Let's look at some more of your live shots here. Yeah, no, so I would say just follow your path. It really seems like, from what I can see, anyways, that it's expanding still, and from the beginning up till now, and all the experiences that you're having and where you're being able to go and play. It's really becoming into perspective to me now that, like, you say look at the beginning picture, and then you see that some of the things you've done now. It's kind of like me, where I realize, wow, I just retired from my band, and I don't know if I'll ever do that again. Like, those shows or whatever. And then so it's good to keep it going when you're going, and don't question it. Is this the frack stuff you were talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
This is actually from that gig that Christy described, the friend holding the power cable in the back, isn't it?
No,
Isn't that from Trésor?
No, that's from Montreal. That's
Is it?
from
I missed
from
that.
Mutech. I played a gig at Mutech with a friend Jeremy Greenspan.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jesse Lanza, and we did kind of this specialized show in the SAT, which is like a dome, and so they had kind of 360 visuals and not 360.
So what would you have brought around with you this, like when we were
Yeah, so the
taking them out,
red
like,
case on the
top?
bottom and the middle one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
'Cause
would
that number was fucking
yeah, no, I brought those two cases to Trésor, but and then like packed in, but yeah, so the one case, that bottom one with the red on it, that was the one that we had to hold the cable on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this wasn't the regular touring rack then.
Not all three of those. Like
Yeah.
in the beginning, I did take those two bottom ones, like the smaller middle one was
Yeah.
like light carry on, and then that red one is actually a shock case. So I was able, in the days when you could take two suitcases, so that one kind of went underneath, which was like a little bit nerve-wracking, and but yeah, and so like the modules from the top would have been like just all packed in on that bottom one.
What makes frack better than Eurorack,
Um,
or different?
I would say it's different, yeah. And some people are like, oh, you got the same modules, the sound is the same, but like it's a slightly higher voltage, 15 rather than 12, and I don't know if that makes that much difference to
I think it might.
But I hear it and I listen to my frac stuff, and I just like the frac stuff.
I think it
better.
might.
I use it for recording a lot more
Look at
than
like
I use Hero, so
Bukla's like way up there.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Buchla sound that's different altogether, but yeah, it's just such a, I don't know. There's something.
Yeah.
About
Interesting.
better somehow.
yeah.
I gotta say, I'm impressed. I mean, I know the secret that of Richard Devine's setup when he travels like that is he takes a lot of killer samples Guy's always recording stuff and sampling and making these massive sampling libraries that he travels with a lot of samplers and samplers with great effects. So if you're triggering on all these insane samples at the same time as your drums, then I almost called that the secret of Richard Devine.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, this is a great picture, you guys.
Yeah, that's back in the day.
Yeah, going back, going back. Well, I really have to say, people should take a look into what you guys are doing if you haven't done already. What was that?
That on the left there on the screen is Aaron West. He was our original member in ORPHX.
And big up to Aaron, the original ORPHX. I think it was pre-ORPHX. Was it the Orifice?
The ORPHX, yeah.
The Orifice. Big up to you. And
I was like, no, we got to change that. I don't like it.
All sorts of hilarious shit at this time because Aaron and I would come up with these ridiculous names and things that we wanted to do on stage. And Christy would be like, no, you can't have like a severed goat's head on stage. Like, no, not doing that.
There's going to be no like whatever other performance art happening.
It's probably good.
It's not going to do it.
If you do stuff like that, you know what people will say. They'll be like, SBK probably never let it down. It was like
that's exactly where that was coming from.
Yeah, that and TG.
But especially SBK.
Yeah, SBK especially, but yeah.
We were obsessed.
There's a good shot too.
Yeah,
I think we tried to get Simon to do a shot where you didn't look morbid, Rich, but I think he did his best. But big up to Simon Paul for everything as well, and bringing it in. Fellow Torontonians. Are you guys in Toronto now?
We're in Hamilton.
Still in Hamilton. All right, sticking it in the hood there. I'd like to thank you guys greatly for dropping in with me today and having a chat. Is there anything more you guys wanted to add before we skedaddle?
I just want to thank you for this opportunity, and as you know, we're huge puppy fans, so this is big.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I hope that we can run into each other in Japan, maybe 2 months apart. Maybe maybe I should talk to your promoter. Have your promoter or your agent contact me if you want me to come along.
Yeah, well, we've got to make that happen.
Thanks, Christy, and thanks, Rich. Go check out ORPHX, guys. And see you guys soon. Thank you all for the support. And thanks again, guys.
Thank you.